Segment 7, Nikud Achat, Nikud He. Vayar Sham Sukkah. Vayar Sham Sukkah. Let's expand our ability to tell stories using a wider variety of verbs. By way of review, in order to form a vayiktol expression, we'll generally begin with the yiktol, then add a vav, followed by a patach to the front, and then add a dagesh to the prefix letter, if it does not have a dagesh already. Thus, tikra becomes vatikra, while yikra becomes vayikra. Here are several more verbs that will increase your familiarity with how a vayiktol is formed. Vaya'avdu, vaya'avdu, vayetze, vayetze, vayikach, vayikach, vayisa, vayisa, vayishkav, vayishkav, vanikra, vanikra, vatecheta, vatecheta, vatikra, vatikra. As you review these forms, you will find that they offer a variety of shoresh consonants, some first guttural, some third aleph, some first nun. You will also find that there is a variety of person, number, or gender. All this is offered to help you gain a familiarity with how the vayiktol is formed. We'll next turn to the corresponding appendix entry, where we'll encounter even more vayiktol forms. Here's the appendix entry corresponding to segment Sheva Nikud Achat Nikud He. Let's explore the vayiktol spelling of so-called weak verbs. To begin with, please scan the yiktol column below. So we find yivne, ya'aneh, yir'eh, yishteh, and takeh. What characteristic do these verbs share in common? Now give your attention to the vayiktol column. See if you can discover there two variations which occur in these particular examples of the vayiktol. Vayiven, vayiven, vaya'an, vaya'an, vayar, vayar, vayesht, vayesht, vatach, vatach. Perhaps you noticed that each of these verbs trace to a shoresh that ends in yud-he, such as bana or ana. With third yud-he verbs, the vayiktol form will lose the final syllable, the one involving yud-he. Since a syllable has been lost, these vayiktol spellings are known as shortened or apocryphated forms. Consider, for example, the yiktol form yivneh. There we can hear an accent on the ultima, yivneh. But when we produce the vayiktol form, notice how the accent moves toward the front of the word, landing instead on the penultimate syllable, vayiven, not vayiven, but rather vayiven. Now let's consider another group of yiktol forms and their corresponding vayiktol. First, listen to the yiktol. Yavin, yasim, yamut, yakum, yashuv. Do you notice what feature these share in common? And now listen to the vayiktol. Vayaven, vayasem, vayamot, vayakom, vayashov. Each of these arose from a hollow shoresh, that is, one whose middle radical is either yod or vav. As with the third yod-he, again we find that the accent has moved one syllable closer to the beginning of the word. It lands on the penultimate syllable. Also notice that in the case of the vayiktols whose last vowel is a kamates, that kamates now appears in a closed, unaccented syllable, which provides the conditions necessary for indicating a kametz hatuf. That is why it's pronounced O, as in vayamot, and vayakom, and vayashov. Here are two more vayiktol forms with the retracted accent. These two are extremely common in Biblical Hebrew. Vayomer, vayomer, and vayelech, vayelech. This next group does offer shortened forms, although they are not apocopated, since no syllable has been lost. The shortening amounts to a change from a hirik yod to a tsere, the shortening of a vowel. All the verbs in this particular group belong to the spelling known as hiphil, the hiphil binyan, or stem. This will be explained more fully in Unit 8. But since you've already encountered a few hiphil forms, we'll provide here the vayiktol forms corresponding to those particular verbs. So the yiktol, for example, of the first verb reads ya'amin. The corresponding vayiktol is vaya'amein. Notice the shift from hirik yod to tsere. Next, yagid, and its vayiktol, vayaged. Next, yashlich, compared to vayashlech. There's one more instance of a retracted accent that is worth knowing about. It's known as nasog achor, which means receding. And this principle will retract the accent when, to fail to do so, would create a phrase in which two accented syllables would stand adjacent, namely, an accent in the last syllable of one word, followed by an accent in the first syllable of the next word. Here's an example from Genesis 1:5. Notice in particular the verb kara. Typically it should be accented on the final syllable, kara, but instead you'll find it accented on the first syllable, kara, due to the fact that it's followed directly by a word which does have the accent on the first syllable, laila. To leave kara unchanged would mean that there would be adjacent accents, the end of one word, the beginning of the next. In order to compensate for this, we find it vocalized as follows. V'lachoshech kara laila. V'lachoshech kara laila.